Welcome to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back, guys. It's Monday, the 31st of March. The quarterly is closing, and we're gonna be going through a few questions on Twitter today that I asked you 2 days ago, and we're gonna discuss backpack really shortly, and I think we have to revisit a few things of last week. Ethereum is kind of, doing a pretty shitty job here, but we did kind of nail the Bitcoin top in terms of the price last week. I think that we're in a bit of a pickle if things turn really sour here. But I do think it's going to take some time. We've had the bad news today of the tariffs, more tariffs, mostly threatening of tariffs, but some of that will definitely translate into the markets, obviously. I want to have your attention for Backpack. Backpack is sponsoring this content, this video, and Backpack is on their way, in my opinion, to become one of the tier 1 exchanges. They have everything that you need from spot to perps, and they have some very neat features like yield bearing interest on perps. So, for example, here, currently my perp position is yielding me 3.36% per year. They've done some really cool updates, and if your jurisdiction is not available yet, expect it to be soon. So if you think bigger picture, and you think about how this is going to come to a couple of jurisdictions, we're probably going to be in a very, very sweet spot in terms of growth. And I think we're early. Currently, they're doing this season thing where you can score points every week. I'm not really sure what we're going to get in return for it. Maybe it's going to be airdrops. Maybe it's going to be, I don't know, tokens. I don't know. It's completely speculative what we're going to get in return for that. But knowing the team, they will do their best to reward early users significantly. So, without further ado, this is the Bitcoin short I took, which is currently saving my ass on the Ethereum long. So essentially, I am ETH BTC long on the exchange right now by being long ETH USD and being short BTC USD. We said a few questions, so I want to start out with this question. Where is it? I can't see it, but FixFig asked me where we are in the crypto cycle on the high time frame, and how that translates, for example, to ETH BTC as well. So let's grab a chart. Bitcoin, in my opinion, is still within the larger bull run, and we're just having a little bit of a hiccup. In my opinion, it reminds me of what happened here, although I don't think it will be, we're not going to see anything like we've seen with with COVID. So we're probably, doing something like that without the COVID wick. This is my, price prediction model. In the past, these kind of moves, I think it looks very similar to what we've seen in 2015, 2016. I think we're in this bit where, price kind of went like linearly on the logarithmic scale, and then started to accelerate into a very parabolic thing. We're probably somewhere around there. We're sitting around similar levels. This blue line here is this blue line here. So larger picture, for this model to stay intact, it needs to go and reach the red line here. It's done that here, it's done that here, it's done that here. It's done that here as well in 2021. And bear markets usually tend to bottom out around the green line. So in a way, the last bear market wasn't even that deep. It's just also why I thought we would have to go to 12,000 back in, 12,000, 13,000 back in 2022, where we bottomed around 15,000. So general expectation here is that we need to we need to go into this blue line, around the blue line, and get a a good reality check there. Anywhere below 70 for a prolonged amount of time, like a weekly or a monthly time frame, would I don't know. We'll have to reassess around then. But I would be like, if price gets to 69,000, I think that's a huge opportunity long term. So we're not that far out. Um, and after that, it's only logical, in my opinion, that we kind of bottom and start to accelerate to the upside, where we go and test the red line. Obviously, when price starts to go up, these lines will start to follow upwards. And generally, you're going to see in this phase of the market that the red line could extend, like, it could double itself, which puts us at like $380,000 for the cycle top. So, in my opinion, we're going to have a little bit of a struggle here. All the tariff talk, the fact that Trump, you know, I think it's in his interest to kind of have a bit of a pickle in the spot market, in the equities market, where he can kind of put in the low somewhere in towards like August, September. Most of the debt is being refinanced in the coming months, and then there's another refinancing. There's refinancing in May, and then there's refinancing in August, and I think that's kind of the window where he wants to get as cheap of an opportunity as possible on rates. And if Powell is not going to help him, which currently doesn't seem to be the case, he's going to force it himself. Plus, it gives him an advantage. Like he gets to demand things from other countries that then kind of, either they get sanctioned and tariffed, or they turn around and give the US what he wants. And I think that there's a real risk there, giant risk, because if the economy is not really that great, and if there's like fragility in the financial system, there might be an issue, and things may cascade much deeper and harder than he would like to. And politicians who think they can control the market is obviously a funny thing. If there's going to be intervention eventually, obviously that will at some point support the market. Maybe immediately if there's like no financial risks at all and no cascading effects, but there might be, and that's the risk he's taking. But if he can refinance all the things he wants to do at a cheaper rate, and then on top of that, he gets to have other countries kind of do his bidding a little bit by having to pay up for certain things, and then being able to onboard things back onto the US soil. It might be actually a good thing for the economy long term. So a little bit of pain now, and then we'll see. So I hope that kind of answers that question. And I think it also answers Tim's question, how much the impact and correction in the USA markets in the short term will affect the scheduled blow of top in Q4 2025. Maybe there's a little bit I can expand on that. I think that August is this moment in time where I do kind of expect the equities market to take another large hit. That's partially based just on data and everything that's going on right now, but it's also based on the Saturn correlation here, and it's a huge correlation. You see, like maybe it wasn't at all accurate here, because the market still started to go up, but the trend eventually became down. It turned around here, and then we had another low here exactly during the great financial crisis, and we're currently in this little dip here. That's projected to bottom out around August. So that's my confluence there, and then we have a bit of a bull run into 27, potentially higher if this kind of pattern repeats itself, where the Saturn correlation says we should go upwards and should go downwards, and the market still goes upwards. So that potentially puts us, all the way in 2029, which is a funny thing because that's exactly 100 years after the big financial crisis. So I personally don't think we're going to see anything incredibly major on the on the on the equities. I do think that, you know, we've talked about it. We've had this chart last week where, you know, we've said like I do expect that this is going to be resistance around the 5800 to 5900 mark, and that's exactly where we rejected. I think personally that this isn't going to go sell off straight away. I think it's just going to do a little bit of ranging and consolidation before we do get lower. And then I think that 4,700 is really the most we will go down. After which we're gonna start like a, you know, another secular bull market into, well, I think well into 2027, maybe 2028, as long as Trump is in office at least. And we'll see, you know, how that works out once we get a new president, but that's a long time from now. So, general outlook on the macro based on these metrics is that, you know, a little bit of struggle and then upwards from, you know, August, September on. Howard Lutnick has said pretty much the same, and I think he's a smart guy. He owns a lot of Bitcoin, and I'm happy that I did short Bitcoin to kind of protect my positions here. So we'll see how that works out. Then I think I want to return to this chart that we discussed last week. Essentially, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish, 6-ish fractals that are the most reasonable to play out here, and currently we're following the red fractal, which puts us, you know, towards that 69, 70, 74, 73 mark that we discussed in this chart here. So currently there's no reason for me to be in much of a hurry to kind of close the BTC USD short. I mean, best case, we do have this sideways movement here. We'll see how that works out. So let's see. Yeah, no, not this one. Not this one. Here. So yeah, I think this pattern here is worth trading towards the, you know, at least the 0.618 retrace level, which is around 81. Could go as deep as 79. Anything below there is questionable, but this could be a leading diagonal and could in fact be the start of the new bull run. So anywhere, as long as this low at 76 is respected, could kind of result in the, you know, the reddish, the blackish scenario here. So I'm not too eager to short this thing like super hard. That's, you know, that's currently where I'm at. Maybe the bottom is going to be formed at the 0.5. It's entirely possible, but there's no rush for me here because I do think that this will get stretched out anyway. So if we don't get the downside, I do think it's going to be sideways and it's going to be incredibly PvP. My general thesis has been that if that occurs, we're going to have a good time on ETH and obviously other alts. Ethereum Jack is back. I still do have that position, the ETH long, and I hope that if that starts to run, we're going to be able to kind of look at some ETH BTC beta. I'm not really sure if that's going to happen here, but you know, there is a possible double bottom formation here. On the larger picture, we do still have, you know, the support here and the support flip, and let's, you know, if you look at this chart, for example, that I posted on Twitter, I do think there is a large similarity in the structure, and this reminds me of what happened around COVID 2020. I do think that if you reclaim this red line here, that we're off to the races and we're at least gonna, you know, go back to the range highs here, or the 786 retracement level, which puts us around 3,500. But, you know, I probably start to manage that position. If we don't get stopped out, I'll probably start to manage it at like 2,800, which could, if something happens, like there's a catalyst in the next week or 2 weeks when it comes to Ethereum and Bitcoin can behave itself, I think things could really move could move really fast. There was this other question someone had on the ETH BTC longs and on Bitfinex, and I don't really. My opinion here is that you're generally going to see this spike when there is discount in the market. It doesn't always correlate to upside later in the cycle, but it has in the past, shown to be a good indication of interest. But when the market is completely out of whack, you always see you kind of always see this coming up. So it's a buyer of discount, and it doesn't always translate into profit. But this entity or entities who built these positions, they tend to get involved when there's a market opportunity. I don't know who exactly could be this. Like, could be Kobe. No, I'm just kidding. But a buyer of discount. So there's an issue when you kind of see this starting to go down. There might be an issue when that happens, but we've seen in the past, for example, here that prices can still go up. So if there is a good catalyst and we start to see profit taking into that catalyst, then the market can keep going up. If not, then there's a giant position here that needs to kind of get out. And at the same time, it's not that huge. It's 1.7 billion or something in dollar terms. But generally, I would say it's a good indication there's interest in the market. And when we consider the metrics that we've discussed last week here, we do see that liquidity is rising on the asset, which generally tends to confirm there's interest into a trade. So something is going on here, and we're seeing like this downside squeeze. If that stops to make new lows on, for example, on the ETH-USD pair here, I think there's a good shot, especially if you consider the fact that funding is kind of negative. And generally when that happens for a prolonged amount of time, it's a good indication that the market is going to be bullish eventually. We've seen it in August 2024, and that was during this sell-off here and accumulation into back into the range high. So I think we might see a repeat of that, where there's going to be some sideways, and ETH BTC may improve in price whilst BTC goes sideways, and then we see this run up potentially once Bitcoin starts to bottom out over the next few months. That's kind of where I'm at when it comes to Bitcoin and ETH BTC. So I hope that answers Gunito's question. I think, yeah, this one here. It is worth paying attention to. It's very hard to kind of predict anything, because it seems that this entity is very price insensitive. It kind of sees the discount and then it just starts building that position, and in this case very aggressively so. When you consider how much short interest there is on CME products and stuff, there's a good shot once this start to unwind that we're going to see a lot of mechanical buying of these shorts. So it could be, it's a game of patience now, and we'll see how that turns out. I might get fucked really badly, but that's part of the game, I guess. And I think the last chart that I want to discuss is the total 2 for alts. Basically, my assumption here was that March is a window to become the bottom, and if we do see a catalyst during Bitcoin sideways, I do think this can run purple. It's a bit of a gamble, but we're having deep discounts, and I sense that the market is so down and so negative that there must be something that needs to give. Um, And if you consider how bad this looks, and then we put like BTC USD next to it, we're okay now for now. Um, Bitcoin looks better for the time being, and if I'm correct about the S&P 500 not immediately selling off here, but kind of give a little bounce and go a bit of sideways before we kind of run into the problems that I foresee going into August. Like nothing goes down in a straight line, and things need to consolidate after sell-offs. Um, if this goes down straight away, we have a much larger problem, and then I really, I'm probably have to gonna bail on the ETH BTC longs. But yeah, that's not what I'm currently thinking will happen, and if it does happen, we'll have to kind of adjust for that. So in short, I'm defensive on BTC, defensive on stocks, and then hopefully that can translate into a consolidation phase where other assets that have been neglected for the last couple of weeks, months, years go into kind of recovery, and at least we get some positive price action. And I hope that kind of answered a ton of these questions. I'll be doing a kind of timing solutions chart here for Bitcoin next week, which is a bit more positive in the short term relative to the S&P 500. So it does indicate that as the market is gonna start losing ground, the S&P 500, that it will find its footing earlier. Bitcoin will find its footing earlier. I hope that made sense, and you've enjoyed these videos. Please, guys, go to Backpack Exchange. Go to backpack.exchange and sign up. Use my ref link because that's going to help me to keep producing these videos. It's going to help grow the exchange, and I do think this exchange has everything to become a top contender. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.